What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the Bible Wisdom YouTube channel. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. Um, you know, I wanted to kind of give a little brief overview of some of the beginning steps of the tribulation that we can, obviously read about in Revelation, starting with chapter 6, is when most uh, people who study the Bible, as far as the people that I listen to, think that the tribulation starts around Revelation chapter 6. Um, but, you know, the, I guess the bigger parts of the tribulation don't necessarily happen until a little bit later in the chapter when God pours out his wrath, um, starting with the trumpets and the vials and then the bowls. And so um, those are, I guess, a little bit about what we see in Revelation. And so, Revelation chapter 6, starting with the first seal, I believe, and I agree with at least the interpretation that I heard about it, is that when it says, there's a conqueror, the pale horse represents conqueror that goes on conquering. And I think, that interpretation could mean some sort of war, and it seems to describe some sort of world war. And I've said this before, but um, it could mean maybe one nation going out to conquer other nations. Another interpretation is, this is sort of the Antichrist that's not necessarily named in this passage, but it's someone who, goes out maybe politically, maybe not necessarily militarily, but something political where you are conquering other nations, which means, bringing them into, one interpretation could be like a one world government. And, the conquering part is, basically taking over one nation and forming it into the nation that is conquering, and um, there's a lot of details that are left out as far as some of the specifics, but I do think that it could represent, maybe a war, militarily, a world war, where it could mean one nation, or it could mean just individual nations, conquering other nations around. But again, the concept of the one world government really comes from, like Revelation chapter 13 and 14, where, you see all nations, were made to worship the image of the beast, basically worshiping the Antichrist. And it also says that, they, uh, the beast and or the Antichrist, or whatever it says there specifically, was able to make everyone receive a mark on their forehead or hand. And it's not just one nation that is doing this, it or one nation that they're imposing this rule on, but it says all people, small or great, rich or poor, free or slave. So to me that describes, a one world government. And I think that's where a lot of scholars get that whole one world government idea. But it also describes, from the homeless person on the street, in a way, to, the multi-billionaire. It describes everyone throughout the whole entire world, receiving this mark in order to buy or sell, for one, but it also represents a mark to sort of stay alive. But that's not really imposed when we go back to Revelation chapter 6. That's not necessarily, if we look at Revelation in a kind of a chronological order or in the order of events as they are read by chapter in a timeline sequence, the whole mark of the beast, one world government, um, or at least the mark of the beast part, doesn't necessarily happen until, later on in the tribulation. But maybe Revelation chapter 6 at the first seal being open is sort of the forming of the one world government. Not necessarily, the imposing of the mark of the beast, but when it says the pale horse went out and began to conquer, that's what it could mean. When the second seal is open, peace is taken from the earth. And it says that men are killing one another. And to me, that seems to imply something more than just the everyday murders that go on, because it seems to imply more of a larger scale, murders that are going on. It could also be coupled with, military actions, but it seems to imply, just kind of everyday men killing one another. And so, is it possible that, at the second seal is when the restrainer is removed? I don't know. It says that peace is removed. It doesn't necessarily say that the peace is connected to the restrainer, but maybe there's some connections there as far as, men just, killing one another. And so when you get down to, the third seal, if I remember correctly, then there's kind of a collapse of the economy, where you have basically a huge scale on different items. I'm trying to remember. I think it's wine or bread. Has like a huge. It takes a day's wage to buy a piece of bread or something like that. And so it seems to me that implies some sort of shift in the economy. And there's a lot of insight. I watch another guy's YouTube channel where he goes into some details about how, he believes that, the economy is nearing a collapse. And so definitely when the third seal is open, you kind of have, it seems to imply some sort of collapse of the economy, where now the prices on, some of the basic items really go up. And what I've heard is they try to tie that into kind of why the mark of the beast system really takes hold on, the whole entire world. It's because, now you have prices that are way too high for anyone to afford, and so it doesn't necessarily, Revelation doesn't necessarily give a complete time scale, especially at the third seal of how long this takes place. We generally believe that the whole tribulation is about 7 years, but as far as the timing of the third seal, uh, when how long that happens, we don't know. But basically, it seems to be in a collapse of the economy, and so this leads into some of the other seals that are open, and you kind of just see sort of I think between the first and the sixth seals, I think you kind of, if I were to summarize it, you kind of see just the collapse of kind of our normal world. I think definitely, we see some signs of that, just happening today, as far as, different analysis maybe on our economy as far as where it's going, different analysis as far as, getting to a place where people would kill each other, as far as peace being taken from the earth. You get, an idea of kind of a world war when you talk about the conquering from the first seal, just because there's so much tension between nations today. And then finally, at when the sixth seal is open, there's a great earthquake, and what it seems to describe is somehow, there is some sort of revelation that the day of the Lord has happened. Because it's interesting when you look at what John sees and is described towards the end of chapter 6. There is some sort of revelation as far as Jesus maybe appearing in the sky or something. But it's interesting what they say. The people are recorded as saying, once they hide in the mountains and in the rocks and in the caves, they say, hide me from, I think it says, the face of the Lamb, because the great day of his wrath has come. So one possible interpretation is, that at the end, when the sixth seal is open, that is the start of the day of the Lord. Or the day of the Lord can also be described as the tribulation, just because, it's interesting what the people say when they hide in the mountains and the caves. Now, it implies some sort of appearance of Jesus, not necessarily his second coming, but it says that the sky opens up, and it's almost implying as if you can see into heaven, and you kind of see Jesus on the throne. Now, I don't know if it stays like that for the whole tribulation period. I don't know if it's kind of like a one-time event, but could that be the time of the rapture? And again, this is just sort of a theory, because I also believe that you can't necessarily figure out specifics of these things, as far as how Revelation is worded and stuff. But could the sixth seal be the start of the rapture? Just because in chapter 7, I made a video on this of how somewhere in chapter 7, I think it's around verse maybe 13 or something, or 14, John sees a multitude in heaven, and one of the elders asks, who is this group of people? And John says, sir, and so he says, these are people that came out of the great tribulation. And in my podcast or video, I think it was a podcast, I said how it seems to imply that they escaped the Great Tribulation. It doesn't seem to imply that that great multitude was killed, because in Revelation, the beheading of people doesn't start until Revelation chapter 13 or 14. That's when it's at least recorded of the mass execution of people who do not take the mark of the beast. And so I don't believe that that whole multitude that John sees somehow dies collectively. And it's interesting that it when it says these, the elder says that these are the people that came out of the Great Tribulation. It seems to me that this implies that this whole multitude are specifically around the timeline of the Great Tribulation, and not necessarily a multitude from all generations, the Old Testament saints, and those that died during the time of Jesus, or after the time of Jesus, all the way up until 2024 today. It seems to imply that multitude that John sees is specifically a group around, revolving around the statement of they came out of great tribulation. And so my hand is falling asleep here. And so when you connect, when I made a video on the original rapture timing, my original belief about the rapture, going back to, this is seems kind of like a complicated video here, but going back to Revelation chapter 6, when the first seal is open and there's a conqueror going on conquering, could that be the lawless one conquering different nations, or could it just be different nations that are conquering other nations, or maybe one nation like China or something conquering other nations? We don't know, but maybe the timing, it doesn't necessarily seem like when the six seals are open, like it seems like a crazy time, but at the same time, the rapture seems like it could be, maybe around one of those seals, maybe the sixth seal, or maybe, it's, the rapture is, before that happens. But, it's all interesting. I don't have a huge amount of time on, my little break here at work, but, I think in the future I want to kind of, make a longer video to kind of really look at scripture. I'm just kind of, I looked at, Revelation before I made this video, Revelation chapter 6. And so, it's possible that we could, live through, the first seal and the second seal and the third seal, all the way up to, at least what it seems to be, Jesus being revealed in, when the sixth seal is open, and, when all the people run into the caves. Could that be the timing of the rapture, just because, it seems to appear that the sky rolls away and different things like that. So this is just, a theory. I wanted to kind of give a brief overview of Revelation chapter 6. I also wanted to kind of, analyze a little bit, I think in conclusion, like I like to say in a lot of my different videos, is that some of these things we just sort of have to wait and see, and, of course, be ready, for his return and different things like that. But we have to exercise that patience. Jesus said, "Do business until he comes," and so maybe some of these things, we will get right as far as trying to guess, exactly what this passage means. And maybe some things we won't necessarily be completely accurate, with our estimation of, hey, this specifically means this, or the timing of the rapture is, right here. Even though, if we say the rapture is around the sixth seal or so, we still don't know the day or the hour, because, there's no timeline as far as those seals and how long they last or how many days they last and different things like that. And also, I want to note that, when the lawless one is revealed, even though it says, he comes with signs and wonders, lying signs and wonders, I don't think it's necessarily completely just going into, the mark of the beast and all of a sudden, he starts beheading people. I think there's some leading up to that. And so when the lawless one is revealed, and then, you have that interpretation of the rapture happening after the apostasy and after the lawless one is revealed, maybe there are stages to, the lawless one, getting worse and worse. And so when he's revealed, maybe he will just look like, a president of a country or something, or some sort of political figure where at least we'll know that he's the lawless one, and then the rapture could happen. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, when he's revealed, the tribulation has completely happened as far as, the specific events. Maybe he could be revealed before, the tribulation starts really taking effect, and, the craziness happens. So that's just a thought. Thanks so much for checking out this video. I want to do something more detailed. I do believe that the rapture can, happen at any moment, as far as, you have Matthew 25 where, there is a sudden, return of Jesus, and, they 5 wise virgins go into, the wedding, and the foolish ones are left behind. And so, anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you on the next one. See ya.